Next up, we're exploring how AI is transforming connected factories from the edge to the cloud, enabling systems that are more context-aware, autonomous, and continuously improving. In the next shift, AI-driven transformation of the connected factory, you'll hear from leaders shaping this new era of manufacturing, where human insight and AI innovation go hand in hand. Joining us are Natan Linder, co-founder and CEO of Tulip, Tom Bianculli, Chief Technology Officer at Zebra Technologies, and Alex Francois St. Cyr, Business Development Executive at AWS. Three experts driving the future of intelligent, connected operations. Please join me in welcoming Natan, Tom, and Alex to the stage.
Thank you. Okay, hello. It's nice. Kind of change of venue quickly. Great to see you all. And we want in this session to do a few things and like take it even down a level in the conversation, and try and get specific. Like, what does it actually mean to put AI to use in operation or support across enterprises? So let's start with quick introductions, and then I have like a warm-up question. But this is going to be a different panel. Okay, most panels you kind of sit back and you're like, it's interesting, and go through the phases of like, when is this over? Because panelists tend to talk. We're going to try and avoid that. So we have two games. One is slide musical chairs, because like we prepared some stuff to show. And then the other game we want to play with you is questions and answers, because we have a lot of questions, but it would be way more interesting if people kind of jump in. So that game is played by raising a hand and catching my attention, which I hope will work.
We'll get everybody warmed up too.
We'll get everybody warmed up, but just don't think like you're in a normal panel. They usually tend to have like a weird sinus. So with that, Alex, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Alex Francois St. Cyr. I'm a business development executive at AWS. I'm part of the automotive and manufacturing business unit. So in this role, what I do is work with automotive and manufacturing customers to really get them on their journey of continuous transformation when it comes to adopting technologies such as Gen AI, agentic AI, IoT, and other related technology to the cloud.
Yeah, sure. So good morning, everybody. Tom Bianculli, Chief Technology Officer at Zebra Technologies. And we're looking at, in the technology office, a lot of a new advanced technology that we sort of de-risk ahead of our product roadmap. So working on those areas and then getting them embedded and then out the door, rubber on the road from a technology perspective. Lots of focus these days on computer vision, and actually even over the last 5 years, computer vision, machine vision space, and then bring in the generative AI capabilities. And then we also have a vertical strategy team under us, because at Zebra we're organized by, our businesses are kind of organized by the products we make. But we heard this morning how important it's kind of engaging, and you guys are doing it from day one. I think you said there wasn't a day running, right, for Tulip that wasn't with a customer from the get-go.
Always a customer, and very quickly after that with a partner.
Exactly.
Which is what we're getting to.
Yeah, so we have a vertical strategy team that's just keeping their ear to the ground by verticals. We have Seth Rao here from our manufacturing vertical expertise area, and we have that across each of the verticals that we serve at Zebra. So we kind of bring all that in for the organization and then filter it around, so we're designing products that are hitting market center points, pain points. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm just going to ask the team, the clock is not running here, so there's a chance no one will get out of here for lunch, because we'll just keep talking. But maybe put it in 40 minutes now, I think, or whatever it is, and make it run that way. Yeah, great. Thank you. So let me explain like why I wanted to put this specific group together here and like have a more intimate conversation, because we're partnered with both AWS and Zebra, and they represent two really important ends of, so to speak, the spectrum of what our customers need to actually go through a full composable transformation continuously and all that kind of stuff. They need infrastructure, everything that comes along with that, and they need devices, process, and intelligence that spans between the edge and the cloud. And I think if we're not thinking about, in our particular domain, I don't think that when you go to, maybe the NVIDIA conferences or whatever, or the general internet AI wash type venues, no one really talks about the edge. Certainly, they may talk about the edge, but they don't talk about the edge the way we talk about the edge. We talk about fault tolerance, we talk about store and forward, we talk about all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to give you context, like why this is set up and like how partners actually come together to think about it. And this is sort of the invite to you to start thinking about your question. So with that, and we have a clock running, we're going to do a quick warm-up question. So everybody experiences AI differently because of your generation, because of your background, because of the industry, whatever it is. Let's start with you, Alex. Like, how did you experience AI first? And should I put the first slide?
Yeah, sure.
All right, here's the first slide.
I hope it reminds a few people some stories.
This is Alex's slide.
Well, I mean, yeah, and that's going to show my age, right? So, I mean, my first experience was as a child. Actually, I went to see The Return of the Jedi in France. I'm French originally, and in the movie theater, and I was quite young. And obviously, that was my first experience, with those robots that look normal, right? They look like, they should be part of life, and that's the way we should be able to, to experience, that maybe not that far in the future. So that was my first
kind of talk to robots that would fly our spaceships.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds kind of what we're doing in factories today, kind of. How about you, Tom?
So
do you have a slide?
I love the idea of science. I don't have a slide on this one.
You just
but the idea of science fiction as a predictor of what's going to come. Sometimes it's the better predictor than people that are purposely doing it. But actually, my father was a programmer in the telecommunications space growing up. So like in the mid '80s, and he had believe it or not, it's pretty geeky, but he had a hobby around as neural networks were starting to become a thing. Kind of understanding and simulating neural networks. And this was on like an IBM XT or something, speaking about dating ourselves. And what he was playing around with was trying to predict the future of commodity prices. So here we are 40 years later, and we still can't predict the future of commodity prices. Yeah. But it was a fun project, and you think about what that was running on, resource-wise, 4 megahertz processors, and these really small. Now we have billions of parameters, and there's been so many milestones. I think you said this, Nathan, in your presentation this morning. It's like, hey, it's not new. It's been around for a really long time. There's been so many milestones, but it really does feel like in the last few years there's a lot all at once, right?
Yeah,
and that is really happening. So it's fun to see, and the early days of running a few simulated neurons on an IBM XT, we've come a long way.
So let's talk about for a second sort of, we said cloud, edge, AI, and there's lots of predictions around the size of market that represented. Both of you also are working at public companies that kind of need to think very long term about this. Otherwise, shareholders get upset or something. I don't know. I don't have that problem. But the estimated spend is like 1.5 trillion to 2 trillion on global AI spend. So these are like outrageously insane numbers. What does it mean like for factories? Like what does AI-driven connected factory mean to you? Like what would you say?
Yeah, so we have been focused very much on intelligent operations, which is a category that's out there. But really, the concept is, so to answer your question, we really say if you're fully embracing intelligent operations, you are driving an AI connected factory roadmap. And what really is intelligent operations? It's a combination of AI with automation with data. You take those 3 things, you mix it with human expertise, and you aim at optimizing business processes with that. That's really what intelligent operations are. And I think, like you were saying, Nathan, this morning, it's like the word transformation is A, overused, B, it's default now. Yeah. So the next level of granularity is embracing that. Let me put AI together with automation, with data, and look to really kind of optimize what I'm doing from a workflow perspective. So I think it's really all about, we're going to talk about that quite a bit. I think maybe your questions will be on that too, is really all about the data. So when we think about that at Zebra, it's the what, the where, the when, the why. Gathering all that contextual information, being able to feed that into AI, and then derive insights that help optimize those business processes and workflows. And
you're pretty close to the customer.
We are, yes.
So I have a little challenge follow-up for you. I'm sorry, I didn't prepare you for that. You all are kind of close to the customer, but also you're far away from the customer.
Well, yes and no, right? Because, I mean, if you think about us as like an infrastructure provider, probably, but to your point, we really go down to the shop floor, with like those applications that are being used at the machine level, and then being able to really, to your point, get that data out, right, of this, so that people, that are actually looking at OEE and other metrics can make decisions, about this. And it's about liberating, that data.
How are you, but this is, I think, really interesting. So how do you, so obviously AWS has great connections to the IT and to the folks who are very, very much, kind of your natural habitat, so to speak, within an enterprise. But can you help? Because I think like making an impact for the customer is just like, it's solutions. It's not like mystery. It's like, does it solve the problem? How does AWS engage there? How do you do help folks understand that a little bit? Because your role is pretty.
Yeah, so my role is more actually, I come from the more OT side, more manufacturing. I'm a mechanical engineer, by trade. So I never thought I would actually work for a cloud company, in the future. But what I do is like we look at more like the business problem that we're trying to solve. It's not about the technology, it's about the business problem. Is it about machine downtime? Is it about, worker, improving their productivity? So we really talk to the OT folks about this. And then you think about technology, what you put behind the scene to actually make that reality. So and what we do to be able to do this is also do Gemba walks. I actually walk with my customers on the shop floor so that I really understand what is going on in their daily activities so that we can actually potentially put something together.
But to double click on that, you do all those things. How do you help then, specifically, like translate all that stuff to, the ability to run all sorts of agent AI on this? Like, how does that then translate into, because we all got the memo. We kind of talked about it last session. We got it. We wanted, like, how do you actually do it? Like,
So, it's based on services, right, that we have. So, and the partner network. So, coming from your data, what that would be potentially scanned, going into a Tulip, application. Those are like pieces of foundation, foundational pieces for us. And from there, you can take that data, store it, and contextualizing it with different, AWS services to build on the top of that analytics. And then, be able to make those decisions, related to those specific use cases.
Great. Let's do another slide bingo. So, do you want to go to your next slide, or do you want to pick one?
This one is.
This one was.
Spin the wheel.
Spin the wheel.
Yeah. I think you can comment on those, as well.
So I think this is yours too.
Yeah, because this one is really about and it's not.
So that brings us to the adoption point, which is really what we wanted to get into.
And that's not necessarily related directly to manufacturing, but it's more what we've seen, from customers in terms of the adoption of AI, which is totally happening. It's been happening for quite some time. Obviously, when OpenAI came out, but now what we're seeing is more the value, I would say realization, where we see like 40%, right, of organizations that are already achieving expected productivity and efficiency benefits. So what we saw is that 2023 was really a year of trying, exploring. 2024 was about really doing proof of concepts on very specific use cases, and then being able to really see that value, that business value coming to life for 2025.
Let's do our own server here for a second. So, who is actually using AI on the shop floor regularly, and never going back, or not testing, not messing around, really using it? I'm just curious. This is not pre-cooked, folks. This is the point I wanted to make. Like, no one raised their hands. Who did like a POC, not like somewhere, like shop floor or otherwise? Like a real commit. There's one.
Right.
Okay.
That was another one.
Couple. So, but that's like 2 out of 55
right.
or 60 or whatever the capacity here. That's kind of crazy. So like this is like the dissonance I was talking about between what's out there in the marketing. Not referring to your survey. I'm sure you're seeing it with your customer, but like in our industrial operations and the reality. But where do you see the most value? Like maybe you take this because like I'm sure you have a perspective on this. Like where do people see the most value?
Yeah, I mean,
once stuff is out there.
Yeah, I wonder if we phrase the question to using, I don't know, like let's say machine learning models on machine vision cameras for doing inspection.
Yeah,
we probably
get
would
a
get
bunch
a lot
of
more,
hands, right?
or a few more hands. And so
but Gen AI is different,
Gen AI is different, and we saw a little bit from some of your team presenting on vision language models.
Yep.
And I think that the challenge is for all like us to make it easier to bridge the gap. Because if you want to go set up a machine vision camera on an assembly line to go inspect, at a bottling plant or pharmaceutical packaging, or there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of partners, there's an entire ecosystem, and you can get up and running quick. And I think with composable services, the whole proposition is that we're going from kind of centralized decision making to democratized decision making, pushing the decision down to where it can be most effective at the edge, and that tooling is in the process of being built out. So I think what we're seeing is we're seeing a pretty small percentage of early adopters, and primarily it's a combination of top-down. Sometimes at the C level, they don't even really know what they want. They just know they want something, and they're saying, "Hey, I want something I want something in production in my environment. Go come back with the best use case." So that's coming from the top down, and then from the bottom up, people are, teams are looking to rise to that occasion. That's coming from an executive perspective, and then partnering with people to kind of go and make it happen. So we have.
Do you have a good story to tell?
Well, from a generative AI perspective, we can flip to the next one. Yeah, I mean, because
that's your slide bingo?
Yeah, this is my slide bingo. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's a little bit of kind of the perfect storm dynamic. When you look at the macro challenges, you spoke, Nathan, this morning around productivity and worker availability and shortage. This is a problem that's not going away. And, I mentioned some of the hotspots here in QSR and retail and T&L, but manufacturing's got its same challenge. And actually, Korn Ferry is predicting by the end of the decade, so by 2030, there's going to be a shortage of 85 million workers globally. And this is going to result in $8.5 trillion of unrealized economic output, which is like more than the GDP of Germany and Japan combined. Now, the oxymoron of it a little bit is, I think to your point, if we do our jobs, then the 85 million worker shortage should actually be largely displaced by smarter work, right? Because you brought this up. Like you're not going to find the 5 million people in the next few years, but you can find the 5 million people worth of productivity using these sorts of systems. So that, the idea of continuous learning, adaptation, you got a whole bunch of partners in the in your exhibit area that do this sort of thing. Optimizing for new expectations, we're seeing this where like end customers are just demanding like conversational commerce with an end manufacturer. So they're disintermediating the retailer and being like, I'm establishing a relationship with Nike. Like, I'm not going to go to the store. I'm just going to establish directly with Nike as an example. And then diminished predictability is this idea of the long tail. Like, we could pretty much order whatever any of us could order from a super long tail of product right now and have it at our doorstep in hours. And so with all of the tools that have been advanced from a technology perspective, the net of inventory distortion has continued to get worse over time. So really, and this is a bit of a retail example, but it's something like we're in the order of like $1.8 trillion of lost revenue in retail because of inventory distortion, either stock outs or overstocking. And mitigating that cost is going to come from these kinds of systems. So really what this is saying, if you look at the right-hand side of the slide, AI has the promise to solve a lot of these problems, but the bridge is a bit too far. I think that bridge is incumbent on us as technology providers. And the reason why there were so many hands, I think, is because we got a bridge that's out. We got a bridge that's like doesn't get to the other side yet.
We're going to ask them, but I want to go to Alex. I don't know if you had a comment because I have a question for you.
Yeah, I do. In terms of what we've seen, another example of this with one of our customers is on the maintenance, side of thing, where the customer Georgia Pacific, their machine downtime was too high, and the main reason was because it took a while for the operators to be able to find that information and to make something make a decision, quickly out of that information. And the other issue that they were having is that there were there's a lot of people retiring, as well, and they do have equipment on the shop floor that's 50 years old or so, right? So there's not necessarily documents that exist, like the knowledge is in people's minds. And so where AI really helps in this case, two aspects. The first one being to be able to record potentially conversations, with people. And actually Georgia Pacific called back people that had been retired to be able to get the knowledge, that they had. And those documents then became an additional source of information for the operators so that at the time when they were able to, look into potentially fixing a machine, then they could use some natural language, aspects to ask any questions and be able to, have that information. And by doing that, you really enable the workers to be, more knowledgeable about what they needed to do, and also focus on, other tasks.
Awesome, that's a great story. We're going to talk about the two other examples we prepared, but I want to take a pause for a second, and because we all kind of experience no one raising hands, I want to ask if people are willing to kind of just say, what's the inhibitor? Maybe we can get a couple of examples, because I think that would drive a really good conversation. Because you all kind of use AI in different parts of your lives and maybe even professionally, but why are companies not adopting? Who's brave enough to share? Go for it, sir.
Security
But where are you from? And just quickly.
Amazon Robotics, security and predictability.
Security and predictability. Say a little bit more.
So which models can be used, what happens with the data when it's submitted.
Okay.
The
So
IP
sovereignty,
and the ownership.
IP ownership, not training the models, and predictability, so hallucination. Okay, great. Go, you're in the back. Just
Robotics and hallucination, same thing. Yeah.
which company? Sorry.
Universal robots. Like if
Oh.
you're doing Gen AI on operations line and it hallucinates, then the line goes down. Just rely on
You can't rely on that. Who else has a thought? Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I was just wondering. Okay, I am in Italia for validation issues, so to use the AI GXP compliance, using its factor that
Well,
is limiting the usage of AI in our
because of GXP.
especially for generative
Clear.
AI, because it's not a fixed algorithm and you can validate.
Yeah. Let's get one more example. Who wants to share? Because I think this would actually fit perfectly. Any other issues? Anyone worried about? Yeah, go for it.
Leadership buy-in?
Leadership buy-in? So the leaders are like, this is not important, or what?
That's because we already have, let's say, an existing manufacturing operation. Now I'm having, like a new uncertainty which is coming in. So you would be having some hesitation. Like,
Yeah.
If it's not broke, don't fix it, kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
It also sounds, this is kind of, we had to prepare the question around the culture with AI, so we'll get there. So that's a
Yes.
good point. Anyone over there? Last one. Two of you. Okay, let's go. You start, and then go ahead, please.
legacy systems, dirty data, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a really important point. Yeah. Sorry, I have to do a parenthesis rant here because it's like hearing about like the problem now with AI, with all the monolith, which is like you take the smartest group of people and really great people build great piece of software, and it's finite, and it's like the data models are there, they're kind of set in stone. It's not easy to make Gen AI understand and interact with that because they're so close and not described, and it's just that is a real big blocker that you just hit on. Thank you. Which company are you with?
Power systems manufacturing.
Power Systems. Okay, so you're the last but not least.
Okay. Well, I'm an analyst, Craig Resnick, ARC Advisory Group. So as an analyst, we have probably a little different perspective. And every comment that everybody has mentioned is things we've absolutely heard multiple times. So it's very, very relevant. The one thing that we get constantly is, I'm not going to do anything to endanger my job. Because if I
Culture
make the
goes to
if I make the
culture.
wrong recommendation, it's a career-ending move. If I do nothing, I can go 5 more years till I get my
Yeah.
pension and I'll leave.
Totally. That's a really valid point, and so we got a good collection. So I'll tell my story, then Tom will tell his story, the stuff we're seeing. Okay, I think still early days, and then we'll circle back on the culture. So I think all the points that were raised here are super valid. But by the way, I think a lot of it has to do with some of the things Mason shared earlier, so which we've been seeing. It starts with like where do you create the context that you can actually pass routinely, regularly from the individual doing the work in a secured, governed environment. And we were just before the panel talking about, how do you plug in, say a Bedrock API there, because the Bedrock API was purchased and it's approved and has all the DPAs and approval and whatnot. So I think that's like context is a really important, like context is kind of like, it's kind of like the pot where the flowers grow, or the tulips grow, I guess, because it's like you gotta weed, water, nurture, all that kind of stuff, and we saw that in Outset. So Outset, for those of you who don't know, great tool customer, a medical device customer. They make a kind of a bedside small dialysis machine, super complex device. It has, lots of electronics in it and pneumatics and pumps and whatnot, injection molding plastics. It has a consumable because you have to, replace between patients all the tubes and the bags and all that kind of dialysis material. So the operation is GXP under EDHR plus like a clean room where you make they need to make the consumable. And they were here last year, shared a bit of stuff, and can send that around again. But to build that machine, and you can imagine like the whip rework loop on those kind of systems. I think this thing has like 9,000 parts or something like that. So like any factory, we're allowed to talk about dirty secrets, it's like of operations. It's a good, safe place to talk. So you walk to any factory, there's a WIP area, right? And like what happened? Like who knows what happened? Like there's 9,000 parts. And so how do you know what happened? Well, you hook it up to a thing, and the thing is a test jig that has software that talk to the 9 boards on this thing and collect a bunch of information. And you do that over time, and this is all pre-Gen AI. Then what can you do with it? It's in a database. Well, you can search it. It's there if the FDA knocks, right? But then AI comes along and Frontline Copilot gets launched, all that kind of stuff. Suddenly, they did nothing except like plug it in to that same thing. And that data set, we facilitated getting information and some UI to like retrieve or like do something, kind of apps, kind of instrument that a little bit. And suddenly, so Tulip knows about this data because it's just like there. Now you put another app with a Copilot and you say like, well, we're going to talk to that data right now in the same environment, and we're going to do it in the right places in the WIP, and we're going to carve it this way or that way, because I'm saying table, but it's not like one table. It's a huge SQL database with like many things. So that means that all the data they collected pre the Gen AI era is now being used in the Copilot era. Because it's just there, and I think that's retrieval and enterprise search. So I think that's like a pretty cool story of what people are actually doing today in a secured, shared environment, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah, I mean, our example builds on that exact
Perfect.
same concept.
Tell their story.
See if you, where this was started out really with RFID, and CFIUD's doing molecular diagnostics, really complicated stuff. PhD, highly paid people, and they were literally manualing. It kind of goes back to your example this morning, like clipboards, checking material in, checking material out. And these were scientists doing this, and we actually got to the point where we deployed it. What was termed as sort of a grab and go. So you're just moving the inventory, and this is everything from 300-pound barrels to super cooled types of biologics, and we're able to track all of that as it's coming out of a cage, going in and out of the cage, and then providing that real-time visibility. That's automating all of the SAP transactions in the background with the inventory management system, with the ERP system. So it kind of started out that way, and if you can see some of the numbers there, basically, if you do the math, you're basically saving 1/3, over 9 months, save 90 days. So a third of the time, kind of.
And this is GXP environment?
This is a GXP environment, yes.
And because we have a debt to the gentleman over there. Like how did they handle, or how did they think about the GXP part?
Yeah, I'm not so familiar with how they implemented that part of it.
Okay.
Actually.
So I'll share, because I kind of forgot to mention, and then that will cover one of the point you made on why you can't use it. Look, what we've seen is that folks are okay as a near GXP assist without impacting the record. So you still have human in the loop. This is a huge reason why even if you look at Composer lets you have an environment where you iterate and you let the people do something. The reason you let them do something, the first reason, by the way, it's called respect, because if someone do their job, like, engineers that write code maybe won't admit it, but they rule Cursor like no one's business. Like Cursor works for them in there. But operations people need the same, because they're not. Maybe some are using Cursor in some places, but like they need the same. But the other principle is, if you have a human, because you have humans approving your normal EBR and EDHR through normal process, through quality process. And if you listen to AstraZeneca, well, actually it's in parallel, isn't it not?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it will be online. You chose the best session, just so we're clear. Yeah. We love Astra though. But they've used Meta Tulip, meaning they're using Tulip for the validation process. Anyway, these are good. We're gonna go to we're now gonna talk about. We're not going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about people and culture. What have you seen, Alex? Like, what shifts in the culture organization? Because we had these points here from leadership, from I'm going to lose my job, that actually allow organizations to do that.
Do you want to go to the next slide then?
Of course. This is why we had bingo.
And this is like, this was a survey that was done. Not necessarily by us, but that I think emphasizes, and it's not for manufacturing, specific, for challenge adoptions, but it's about what we're seeing as the main areas across different enterprises. And I think the one I wanted to comment on is like the data, as well. The lack of data or the quality, of the data is definitely a big one that needs to be worked on. And it is part of like the work that's being done when you have to prepare like training a model, for instance, with the labeling, and making sure that data will be, usable for your training. The culture, yes. What's interesting, what we're seeing actually from our customers, like from the leadership side, is how even like explaining, because that technology is moving so fast, right? And people to understand what is in it for me, right? If I put this in place, how is it going to help me? And understanding how people can adopt it and learn about it. And that's definitely something that we see with our customers, and we're helping through different enablement areas. And from the security side of thing, or like safety as well, looking at a well-architected framework for your Gen AI applications, so that you can really understand the robustness of your models, also transparency. Yet there's different factors that you need to look into to make sure that you can ensure that it's going to be unbiased as well in its response. So,
what do you see with customers and culture?
Yeah,
and how does that affect adoption?
Yeah, so I mean, there was recently, maybe you may have seen in the news, there was an MIT NANDA report on. Actually,
do we have a slide on it? Or?
I don't have a slide on that specifically, but it reflected the source of nodding heads.
And your agent didn't make the slides.
Exactly, yeah. Okay. But it did reflect the hands in the room in terms of what's actually deployed. Like they were talking about something like 85% of pilots never make it to deployment.
And caused a big debate.
It did, exactly, yeah. And you could argue with the methodology they use one way or the other, but I think directionally it's fairly valid. We heard that from some of the verbatims in the room. And I think the really key thing is and Alex mentioned this earlier, the two key findings they had that separated those that were successful and deployed versus those that didn't. One was picking a use case, and I think even in some of the dialogue in the room around security or how can I trust it or hallucinations, if you come down to a use case, you can start to get your head around that. There's ways of auditing all those things around a specific use case and go make that use case successful. That was one.
And you get the right people.
Yes.
What's important is that you get the right people that will understand the outcome, for this, so that they all work together.
Exactly, and you're doing it with them as opposed to them, which I think is a big. That was the other area from our perspective. The change management is doing it with the people that are actually going to use it, as opposed to you pull the silk sheet off of what's been created, and it's like now go use this and expect that everyone's just going to go adopt it. The other key finding was picking partners that have that specific use case in their domain, and you're twice as likely to be successful than if you're kind of trying to roll your own. So it's involving the right people internally, the right people externally. Pick a problem that limits the scope of what you have to go tackle. Go get that toehold, and then sort of build your way up. And that I think.
But Tom, I gotta double click. Push you a little bit harder here.
Yeah.
Okay? Like you're the CTO of Zebra.
Yeah.
How does Zebra does it?
Yeah, that's
how do you use it internally?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. You can answer it internally and externally. Yeah. So we didn't talk so much about on the generative AI examples and the CFIA use case, but we're using and deploying knowledge agents now with some of our customers, and we did it exactly this way. We had a champion inside the organization. We picked a smaller domain of use case. We looked at the data they had available to be able to make that agent intelligent. And then we kind of built out the roadmap and the visioning together. So this customer, it was kind of profound in the sense they were using our task management already for deploying tasks down to individuals in their operations. And they said, hey, task management is about the what to do, okay? The generative AI capability is explaining to you how to do it in a way that accelerates your time to competency. So if you're in this high churn environment where you have a lot of turnover, you want to be able to onboard faster. So the value it's providing is that speed of onboarding, and that's the how. And then the future goes to it does parts of that workflow completely for you. So you go from telling people what to do and hoping that everybody kind of does the right thing, which is sort of a little bit today-ish, to being more prescriptive on how they should do it and empowering them with those kinds of tools. to, hey, let me offload the parts that they don't need to do in the first
Do you
place
guys measure?
and just automate that.
Do you guys measure? I know Amazon
Yeah.
measures everything, so.
Yeah.
We're a
Well,
data-driven company.
Yeah, but
yes.
so do you guys measure how much tokens each department and each
Oh yeah,
individual use?
I see that when I use internally. Absolutely, I can see.
So it's go all the way back to you, and you see your personal consumption, your
I
department
see.
consumption.
Yeah, you can.
How about Zebra?
Yeah, well, we definitely see the hyperscalers, running the meter on the token processing,
Yeah.
which we
Well-
which we wouldn't be able to deliver.
Well, without it. They need to pay for attending,
we know you're measuring.
sponsoring great events like this
Yeah,
one.
no, exactly,
So,
100%.
You know,
And we wouldn't have a solution without it.
Exactly.
Some of the in the use cases I was mentioning with customers, where we're building in a whole host of observability into.
Yeah.
So the first measurements aren't really ROI. I mean, they're kind of just what does adoption look like? Are people adopting it? And what we found is that's interesting and important. But if you're trying to pencil the ROI as the customer, it's not sufficient, right? It's what are the outcomes that I was able to generate? Hey, did I upsell someone in an engagement in this case, in a retail example on the sales floor? Did I get a piece of information that helped me do machine maintenance more, in a streamlined fashion? Did I reduce the number of errors that would have been happening in this particular part of the workflow? It's kind of starts with the observability, the adoption, which is table stakes, and then from adoption ultimately to outcomes. So it's a little bit more like a business value set of metrics as opposed to kind of the consumption from a compute perspective.
So I'll wrap up this culture thing, just addressing some of the leadership stuff that people kind of raised. I don't know if it's a pro tip to go talk to the leaders. One thing we say a lot in Tulip is like show, don't tell. So that's why there's like almost 100 demos in the other building, and 40 partners that help put it together, and no one can come without a demo. So, but then we also add to that teach and learn. And you need to use this on your leaders. That's if you're going bottom up. If you're a leader and sitting in this room, you want your organization to use AI. If you're not doing it yourself, no one's going to follow you, full stop. And Katie here can tell you later if you grab her, like our last meeting was just like all about like thinking through AI for marketing. And I don't know if Britt is here somewhere, who recently joined us. It changed how we interview people. Like I tell people, here's a high level problem. Here's some constraint to the problem. Go solve it with AI. Come back to, I don't want to see a deck. I don't want to see a spreadsheet. I'll see whatever you want to show me, to talk to me about it, but I want to see what you built. And I think it spans all professions and all that kind of stuff. And I think if anybody wants to, to truly engage either, there's ways to do it. We would love to help there. I mean, we're doing a lot of work in that domain, but it takes time. And I think eventually people who don't adopt, like they're basically deciding to work in the old world, and it's the story ends in one predictable way.
Intellectual curiosity, I think, is like the big one we see. Like when you talk about changing the interview process, we're looking for people that are exhibiting that curiosity. It might be the most important curiosity.
I mean, it's curiosity, but it's also like ability to jump in. It's almost like the way I equate it in my head is like, this is 1998, and like someone tells you, I did the research using Yahoo and Alta Vista, and it's like, okay.
Right.
It's like, that's not what we're looking for here. Yeah. We are looking for people who are using this thing called Google, and so on. Okay, we have time for questions. Not all at once. Come on, this wasn't that bad. We have more slides if you want slides. Anyone has a question? Go for it.
How about the cost associated with it? You're mentioning with tokens. Is it going to get to the point where hitting these repetitive asks over and over is going to be
Let's let Amazon answer that.
Oh boy.
Who agrees?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, I guess. I mean, the cost is, you're right. Like you have, when people are working on those models, that is something that is taken into consideration when you build it. So you have to look into, like, is this really what's going to drive, what you want to do or not? Or do you have other limitations, when it comes to the type of data, security, et cetera? what we're seeing there is like we always work with our customers, I would say, to like give those guidance, about how you can actually keep that, into control. Because you may start, a little crazy with this, and then you realize quickly that it's going to be too expensive. And then we give you, those guidance, as I was mentioning earlier, about that framework, for where architected, GenAI. That's the way we would, come and work with you to make sure that that doesn't go out of control and that you have, those guardrails I would say in place to keep that, that cost in sync. One thing that changes from that perspective as well is the type of models, right, that you're using, as well. So there are different options, I would say from that.
Yeah, I would add to that. Look, the foundational model shops are going to be there. They're building data centers that are effectively new type of utility. So you're gonna be buying tokens. They're going to be a competitive market on functionality, on accessibility, things like that. I don't know exactly how it will jive with the hyperscalers in the long term. I know right now we're seeing good added value with governance and APIing and replication. Kind of, you want it to live well within your hyperscaler environment, and I don't see that necessarily changing. It's kind of like a new form of compute, right? So it's like not storage. It's not.
It is
CPU.
compute.
It's compute.
Totally.
It's kind of a compute. And you're going to get it on tap. You're going to be able to buy your own metal, which basically means run some edge, open, whatever. That, to a degree, will deal with some of the security governance issue that were raised here earlier as well. But there's no escape from like using this computer. It's just like not a piece. It's not a Dell, and it's not necessarily just an EC.
But to your point, I would say what the difference there is like, there's a lot of work being done on the chips, themselves, so that becomes cheaper, as well. So.
I think Jensen and Sam Altman both kind of made comments on this, that it's about a 10x. So if you kept the model the same, the token processing cost based on the chip improvement is about 10x every 12 to 18 months. Which, if you think about it, so in 3 to 4 years, it's 1,000x better. So. And this, what we didn't talk about this topic so much, but the idea of what runs on the edge, on the mobile device versus the edge and on-prem versus in the cloud, I think we're trying to take a much more dynamic view of that, because it's easy to take a static view and say, oh, this needs to run on the edge because the cost is not going to work out. But then by the time you design the edge box that does all this stuff, then it's 18 months later, and now it's like it's shifted 10x. And so you sort of got to be thinking, what if it got 10x better? What would you build today? And from a cost perspective, and that's how I would be thinking about it.
But part of the price, just to round out this thing, that I would think, and Alex, and you jump in, it's like there's a variable that we're not talking about, which will move the price around, which is energy. So, we're assuming that all of this is true, assuming infinite energy, but once you put that and water into the equation, that could shift costs pretty dramatically. And I don't know that anyone can predict that. If you can predict that, I suggest you run outside and figure out what are you doing about this, because it's worth a lot of money. I don't know the answer to that. But what are you going to say?
What I want to say is like how LLMs are being moved to the, potentially, I'm going to say to the edge, but like on the computer vision side, looking at quality, like one of our models, you can actually use out of the box to actually check.
Right down on the camera.
Yeah, so that is something where you're moving more LLMs even, further downstream versus ML, from that perspective.
The factory playback demo that almost got beaten up for showing, but we are showing it because we wanted to make a point. It actually uses edge VLMs, and there's lots of reasons to do it. They're not necessarily price. It's more about the other topics like
latency,
security. Latency, security. There's a DVR system that does the video. You don't want to ship video to the cloud all the time. You don't want to store all the things. And then there's price. But I think the real future architecture will be pretty hybrid. They have to be designed hybrid. So even in that one, we have some. You have to go see it, but there's like handoff. It decides, kind of like, the latency is good enough now because it's checking it all the time, and the cost. It's not. This is where it needs to go. The cost is good, so I'll do that on the cloud. So it will be dynamic. So that's the last point I wanted to make there. Magically, we're at 0,000, and we're at, I don't know, but we are 2 minutes over.
Lunch doesn't open for 10 minutes.
Okay.
But I don't know about the timer wasn't running. We need to continue.
We're 2 minutes over.
Yeah, 2 minutes over by my clock. Any more questions, or should we wrap this up, folks? Okay, last question over there, please.
I have a question on like the difference in scale between LLMs and VLMs. I'm in robotics, and I think there's a big delta between like, you know, the frontier models are being trained on the entire internet worth of
Correct. Yeah.
text data.
You're right.
I don't think we see those kind of scales in like industrial operations and things that are going to be able to power.
Such an important point.
Yeah.
Can't believe we didn't talk about that.
Data set to be able to really like have VLMs get to the level that LLMs.
Yeah, I think your question is beyond VLMs. It's more the how to specialize industrial models.
Yeah.
But Tom, do you want to take this?
Yeah, I mean, actually, just flip to one slide. I know we're done.
One slide.
But in the upper right, this idea of domain-specific LLMs.
We did prepare for that.
This,
so
this
just-
I think, is something that, and a lot of the analysts are covering this now, sort of saying, hey, that's the next big thing, because the foundational world models aren't really going to know what good looks like in one of these kind of operational environments that you're describing. So one of the ways we're thinking about this is, if you can collect all the information, this is the context concept, that's happening in that environment. So where the data is going to come from, it's going to have to come from your environments. It's going to have to come from companies like us that are doing the asset visibility and the sensing, and we're seeing more and more pull for that. But you could think about, and this is what we're trying to depict, I'm not going to go through the slide, but the way we're thinking about this is, if all of that visibility was context about the environment, and that actually is the prompt into the LLM. So the idea of a prompt ends in a question mark is like, it's boring. Like, who has the time to ask 50 questions, right? Like, what you really want to do is say, this is what the domain-specific LLM knows what great looks like, and it knows everything that's happening, and it can see everything that's happening, and then it's ingesting that, and it's orchestrating actions. So you're not actually asking it anything. So back to your question is, we think this could be the biggest differentiator for a company like Zebra, because they're not going to compete with the tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars that are going in capital expenditure by, you know, a Meta, Facebook, and Amazon, or it should be Meta, Facebook, the same company, but, you know, Google and so on, is really to say what data is unique from that environment that's helping create this domain-specific LLM that has the knowledge of a 25-year experienced doc manager or something like that, that can then help, you know, go orchestrate this. So I don't know if that, I'm not sure it answers your question, but there's no directory to go to. We're going to have to sort of build it, you know, in situ, I think, as we go.
Alex, I'm going to let us take you home, because I think you got to talk a little bit about Siemens.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was thinking about that from that perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we do actually work with customers, you know, like Siemens to build, you know, these kind of models, you know, actually. So yeah, that is part. I think MIT, you know, is actually engaged in doing this as well. So it is definitely a focus, you know, I would say. I mean, we've seen some success with like some applications on the manufacturing like floor, like I said, you know, with like Amazon Nova and looking at quality, like quality management for specific areas. You can actually use it out of the box, you know, like that. But, you know, on the computer vision side as well, we've seen good success. But you're right, like for some very, very unique, you know, particular approach, you may need a specific model. What we've seen as well is sometimes when data is lacking, is actually leveraging those models to also create synthetic, you know, data, you know, to actually enrich the model, you know, as well. So those are other areas that to work on.
You all need to start using it, so you'll create models, and then we'll figure out how to open source some of this stuff without, you know, all the data that you're worried about, IP and whatnot, goes away. Because like right now, it's really, like you're saying, it's trained on the greater internet, and it's no surprise that the big use cases are coding and marketing and stuff like that.
Well, keep in mind that you can fine-tune, right? There are different levels, you know, prompt engineering, you know, fine-tuning, etc. So there are different methods that you can go through to actually improve, you know, those models before, you know,
you can totally do that. And I think when companies are sufficiently large, you know, there's some sort of hysteresis that will happen. So meaning it will absorb enough. It doesn't need the whole internet. It doesn't need the whole set of discrete manufacturing companies. It just needs to know how you're doing lean, and how you're doing, I don't know, OEE, and how are you doing, I don't know, data contextualization at the source and so on. And it could work pretty well. So I think that's all the time we have. Thank you very much. Hopefully this was like an okay, kind of different type of panel. So appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you.